They warned me about him. Harrison Cole doesn't have a heart, they said. He'll chew you up and spit you out. But when his emerald eyes locked with mine that first day, something shifted. I wasn't just his security chief anymore. I was the only person who'd ever seen him cry. Before we dive into this story, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this tale about love, power, and breaking down walls is one you won't want to miss. Trust me, by the end, you'll believe that even the coldest heart can thaw. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Nia Bennett, and I'm about to tell you how I fell in love with a man the world called impossible. But first, you need to understand who I was when I walked into that interview. I was military trained, top of my class in executive protection, and I'd taken bullets for people who never even learned my last name. I was good at my job because I understood one thing. Everyone has a weak spot. Everyone has something worth protecting. I just didn't know that Harrison Cole's weak spot would end up being me. The day I interviewed at Cole Industries, I remember standing at the base of that glass tower, 63 stories of steel and ambition piercing the sky. People rushed past me in expensive suits, nobody making eye contact, everyone moving like they were being chased by something invisible. That should have been my first clue. When I stepped into his office on the top floor, the city sprawled beneath us like a conquered kingdom, and there he was. Harrison Cole, 6'3", tailored suit that probably cost more than my car, and eyes like winter frost. He didn't smile, didn't stand, just looked at me like I was another problem to solve. "Ms. Bennett," he said, my name sharp in his mouth. "Your resume says you're the best. I don't hire the best. I hire the only. Convince me you're the only." For 2 hours, he grilled me, tested me, questioned every decision I'd ever made in the field. He threw scenarios at me that had no right answers just to see if I'd crack. But here's what he didn't know. I grew up with 3 older brothers in Southside Chicago. I learned early that you never show fear, not even when your knees are shaking. So I stood my ground. When he asked if I could take a bullet for someone I didn't respect, I said, "Respect isn't required for duty. But if you want someone who will die for you out of obligation, hire someone else. I protect people I believe in." Something flickered in his eyes then. Not warmth, just recognition. He hired me on the spot, but his last words stuck with me. "Don't expect friendship, Miss Bennett. I don't do personal." The first week was hell. Harrison Cole didn't just have high standards. He had impossible ones. He worked 18-hour days and expected everyone around him to match his pace. The man didn't laugh, didn't joke, barely spoke unless it was business. I shadowed him through meetings where grown men trembled, through phone calls where he dismantled competitors with surgical precision. People in the office whispered about him, how he'd destroyed 3 rival companies in 2 years, how he hadn't taken a vacation in 5 years, how nobody had ever seen him on a date, at a party, anywhere that wasn't work. They called him the Ice King, and honestly, they weren't wrong, but I noticed things nobody else did, like how he never ate lunch, just drank black coffee until his hands shook, how he'd stare out his window sometimes, jaw clenched like he was fighting ghosts nobody else could see, how he was never cruel, just empty, like someone had scooped out everything soft and left only the sharp edges. Then came the threat. Anonymous, handwritten, slipped under his office door. "Empires fall, so will you." That changed everything. My job shifted from professional distance to 24/7 proximity. I had to move into the guest house on his estate, be within reach every moment until we found who was behind the threats. Harrison fought it. "I don't need a babysitter," he snapped, and I saw his jaw tighten with that need for control. "It's my job, not your choice," I told him, matching his tone. "You hired the only. This is what the only does." For the first time, I saw his hand tremble as he set down the threat letter. Just for a second. But I saw it. The Ice King was afraid. Living in his world was like stepping into a beautiful, hollow museum. His mansion was all marble and glass, expensive art on the walls, but not a single personal photograph. No warmth, no life, just cold perfection. I'd wake up at 4 in the morning to check the perimeter, and every single time, I'd find him already awake in his home gym, running on the treadmill like he was trying to outpace something. One morning he saw me watching. Can't sleep? He asked, and I shrugged. Old military habits. We talked then, really talked, for the first time. I told him about losing a teammate overseas, about the weight of being responsible for someone else's life. He listened with this intensity that made me feel like I was the only person in the world. You understand pressure, he said quietly, and something in his voice cracked. Most people don't understand what it costs to never fail. The breaking point came at a charity gala 3 weeks into my assignment. Harrison had to play the charming billionaire, shaking hands and writing checks while I stayed close in a black evening gown, my weapon hidden but ready. I watched him put on this mask of warmth that never reached his eyes, watched him smile at people he'd never think about again. Then some drunk socialite with old money and new prejudice made a comment about me being the help in a fancy dress. I've dealt with racism my whole life. I was ready to let it slide. But Harrison went ice cold in a way that made the room temperature drop. He didn't yell. He just systematically destroyed that man's reputation in 3 sentences. Made it clear I wasn't just an employee, I was his people. And nobody disrespected his people. In the car afterward, his hands were shaking again. I'm sorry you had to hear that, I said, and he turned to me with something fierce in his eyes. No one disrespects my people. No one. That word, it landed between us like a promise. I started to understand Harrison Cole didn't trust easily, but once you were his, he'd burn the world down for you. Late one night, I found him still at his home office at 2 in the morning, papers scattered everywhere, that hollow look back in his eyes. I brought him food he wouldn't eat and coffee he didn't need. Why do you care? He asked suddenly. No one else does. I sat down across from him. Because I see you, I said. Not the billionaire, not the ice king, just the man who's exhausted and won't let himself rest. That's when the walls cracked. He told me about her, about the woman he'd loved 5 years ago, the one he'd planned to marry. She'd been perfect, he said, understood his work, supported his ambitions. Then, the week before the wedding, she disappeared. Left a note saying she'd never loved him, that it was all about access to his business plans. She'd sold his secrets to competitors and vanished with enough money to retire. The betrayal nearly destroyed his company. It completely destroyed his heart. I loved her, he said, and his voice broke on the word loved. I would have given her everything. She used me. I reached across the desk, covered his hand with mine. Not everyone is her, I told him. Not everyone will hurt you. He looked at our hands like he'd forgotten what human touch felt like. How do you trust again after that? He whispered. You start small, I said. You start with one person who shows up. Every day, even when it's hard. The night everything changed started with glass breaking. I was asleep in the guest house when the alarm shrieked, and my training kicked in before I was fully awake. Someone had breached the estate. I ran toward the main house, weapon drawn, and found a man in black climbing through Harrison's study window. I didn't think. I moved. The intruder had a knife, and we went down hard. I felt the blade slice across my ribs as I fought him off, felt my own blood hot and wet, but all I could think was, not Harrison. Anyone but Harrison. I took the guy down, zip-tied him, called the police. Then the adrenaline wore off and the pain hit like a freight train. Harrison found me leaning against the wall, clutching my bleeding side. I've never seen terror like that on another human's face. He went completely white, and his hands shook so badly he could barely pull out his phone. Nia, he said, my first name raw in his mouth. Oh God, Nia. He didn't wait for the ambulance. He carried me inside himself, laid me on his couch, and his hands were still shaking as he grabbed first aid supplies. While he bandaged my wound, I watched him fall apart. The Ice King melted right in front of me. You could have died, he said, and there were tears in his eyes. Actual tears. You could have died for me. I caught his face in my hands, made him look at me. That's love, Cross, I told him. Protecting what matters. His eyes locked with mine. You matter, he whispered. You matter more than anything. He leaned in, and I knew he was going to kiss me. Every cell in my body wanted him to, but I pulled back. "You're my client," I said, even though it killed me. I won't be something you regret." The next week was torture. We danced around each other like strangers, both trying to pretend nothing had changed when everything had. Harrison retreated back into his ice, colder than ever. I questioned everything. Had I imagined the connection? Was it just adrenaline and proximity? I heard him on the phone one day, his voice sharp and cruel with some vendor who'd made a mistake. Later, I passed his office and saw him alone, head in his hands, shoulders curved like the weight of the world was crushing him. I couldn't take it anymore. I walked in without knocking. "We need to talk," I said, and he looked up with exhausted eyes. "Tell me the truth. All of it." So he did. He told me about watching his fiancée walk away with his trust and his business plans, about standing at the altar alone while 200 guests whispered, about the note she left. "I never loved you. You were just useful." He told me how he'd built walls so thick nothing could get through, how he'd worked himself into numbness because feeling anything meant feeling that pain. "I can't do it again," he said. "I can't love someone and wait for them to destroy me." I sat beside him. "My ex was different," I said. "He didn't want my business plans. He just wanted me small, weak, dependent. When I'd succeed at anything, he'd tear me down until I believed I was nothing. I joined the military to prove I wasn't the weak thing he said I was, to prove I was strong." I turned to Harrison. "We're the same, you and me. We both got hurt by people we trusted. We both built armor. But armor doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you alone." He looked at me with something breaking in his eyes. "I've fallen for you, Nia. I tried not to. I tried so hard to keep you at distance, but you—" I kissed him, cut off his words with my lips, poured 5 weeks of longing into that kiss. When we broke apart, we were both breathless. "I'm scared too," I told him. "I'm terrified, but I'd rather be brave with you than safe alone." He kissed me again, deeper this time, years of ice melting into heat and hunger and hope. But loving Harrison Cole meant fighting for him. His board of directors heard about us within days, and the pushback was immediate. Concerns about propriety, questions about my suitability. I knew what they really meant. I wasn't the right color, the right background, the right kind of woman for their billionaire. Harrison was called into meetings where they pressured him to end things quietly. I told him straight, "I won't be your secret. I won't be hidden like I'm something to be ashamed of. If you can't stand with me publicly, then we end this now." The next board meeting, Harrison didn't just stand with me. He restructured the entire security division, promoted me to VP of Security Operations, and made a public statement that I wasn't just his security chief, I was his partner. He told the board members who objected that they were welcome to resign. 3 did. Harrison didn't even blink. "They were dead weight anyway," he said afterward. And I laughed because my Ice King had finally learned to choose love over approval. 6 months later, I barely recognized the man I first met. Harrison smiles now. Actually smiles. With his whole face, the kind of smile that makes his eyes crinkle. The office culture changed too. He's still demanding, still brilliant, but there's kindness now. Employees don't flinch when he walks by anymore. His mansion has photographs on the walls now, pictures of us, pictures of life being lived, not just survived. He brings me coffee in bed every morning, and I make him take breaks to actually eat lunch. We balance each other. My warmth to his logic, his structure to my spontaneity. On the anniversary of the night I got hurt protecting him, he brought me back to the estate at sunset. We stood in the exact spot where I'd bled for him, where everything changed. He got down on one knee, and I swear my heart stopped. "You bled for me here," he said, voice steady but eyes wet. "Let me live for you. Let me spend every day proving that I'm brave enough to deserve you. Marry me, Nia." The ring was simple, elegant, perfect. Just like him, once you got past the ice. I pulled him to his feet. "I didn't melt your heart," I told him. "I just reminded you it was there all along." Then I said the easiest word I've ever spoken. Yes, forever yes. People called Harrison Cole impossible, ice cold, unreachable. But here's what I learned: he wasn't cold. He was protecting himself the only way he knew how. Real strength isn't about building walls, it's about being vulnerable enough to let them fall. Real love isn't perfect or easy. It's choosing each other every day, even when you're scared. I didn't change Harrison. I just loved him until he felt safe enough to change himself. And that made all the difference. So that's our story. Proof that the coldest hearts can thaw when they find the right warmth. If this story touched you, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me. Do you believe love can truly break down walls? Have you ever been the ice or the warmth in a relationship? Share your story below. I read every single comment. And don't forget to subscribe because next week, I'm bringing you another powerful love story that'll make you believe in second chances. Until then, remember, your walls might protect you, but they also keep out the people who could change your life. Stay brave, stay open, and I'll see you in the next one.